My husband said he loved me for 8 years. Then I found a photograph in his sock drawer that proved love was never part of his plan. He stole $400,000. He bought a house with another woman. He left me with debts I never knew existed. Then he looked at me and said, "You have nothing left." He was wrong. The police asked why I didn't scream, why I smiled. I told them the truth: screaming doesn't win, planning does. My name is Clara, and this is the story of how my husband took everything from me, and then how I took it back. Let me start at the beginning of the end. It was a rainy Tuesday in March. I had taken the day off work because I had a dentist appointment in the morning. That appointment got canceled at the last minute, so I came home early. Mark was not home. He was supposed to be at his office downtown, working on a big real estate deal. That was his job. He bought old buildings, fixed them up, sold them for more money. He was good at it, or so I believed. Our house was quiet. Too quiet. I remember standing in the kitchen for a minute, just listening to the rain hit the windows. I decided to do something I rarely did. I decided to clean out the bedroom closet, not because I suspected anything, just because I had time. I started with my side of the closet, then moved to his. I was folding his sweaters, putting them in neat piles, when I opened the bottom drawer of his dresser. It was the drawer he always told me not to bother with. Old receipts, he said, broken watches, junk. But that day, I pulled the drawer all the way out, and underneath the pile of old socks, I found a folder. A plain manila folder, the kind you buy at any office supply store. It was not thick, maybe 10 pages inside. I sat down on the edge of the bed and opened it. The first page was a bank statement, not from our joint account. From an account I had never seen before. The name on the account was not Mark Callahan. It was Mark Stevens. That was his mother's maiden name. The balance at the bottom of the page was $412,000. $412,000. I remember blinking, reading the number again. $412,000. My hands started to shake, not because I thought he was hiding money. I thought maybe it was a business account. Something for his real estate deals. That made sense, right? A separate account for work. I turned to the next page. It was a deed. A property deed for a house on Maple Street. I knew Maple Street. It was a nice part of town, old trees, big porches, houses that cost $700,000 or $800,000. The deed had Mark's name on it, Mark Stevens again, and another name, a woman's name, Samantha Reed. I did not know any Samantha Reed. I stared at that name for a long time. Samantha Reed. It sounded like a name someone would make up, but it was on a legal document. She was listed as co-owner of the house on Maple Street. The house was purchased 6 months ago. 6 months ago, Mark had told me he was putting extra money into a business expansion. He had showed me spreadsheets. He had talked about interest rates and loan terms. He had made me feel stupid for even asking questions. I turned to the third page, and that is when my world really ended. It was a photograph. A printed photograph, the kind you get from a drugstore photo center. It showed Mark and a woman I had never seen before. She was pretty in a sharp way. Dark hair cut short, red lipstick, a black dress. They were standing in front of a fireplace, not our fireplace. A fireplace in a house I did not recognize. Mark had his arm around her waist. They were both smiling, not just smiling, beaming, the way people smile when they are truly, deeply happy. In the background of the photograph on the mantle, I saw a calendar. It was turned to the month of September. And on one of the days, someone had written in big red letters, "Our 1 year." 1 year. They had been together for at least 1 year. That meant this started at least a year ago, probably longer. I tried to do the math in my head. 1 year ago, Mark and I had been planning our 7th anniversary trip. We had gone to a bed and breakfast in Vermont. He had held my hand across the dinner table. He had told me I was beautiful. He had made love to me that night. And all the while, there was a woman named Samantha Reed. There was a house on Maple Street. There was a secret bank account with $400,000. I sat on the bed for what felt like hours. The rain kept falling outside. The room got darker as the afternoon went on. I did not turn on a light. I just sat there, holding the folder, reading every page over and over again. There were credit card statements for restaurants I had never heard of. There were receipts for jewelry from a store downtown. There were handwritten notes, folded into tiny squares, that said things like, "Can't wait to see you tomorrow, my love, my love." He called her my love. I did not cry. I wanted to cry. But my eyes stayed dry, like my body was saving the tears for later. Instead, I felt something else start to grow in my chest. It started small, like a seed. But by the time I heard Mark's car pull into the driveway at 6 o'clock that evening, that seed had grown into something hard and sharp and cold. That was the moment I decided not to confront him. I know what you're thinking. Clara, why didn't you scream at him? Why didn't you throw the folder in his face and tell him to get out? Because I am not stupid. I am not weak. I am a woman who has been underestimated her entire life. My parents underestimated me. My teachers underestimated me. And Mark, my own husband, had underestimated me so completely that he left evidence of his betrayal in his sock drawer, next to his mismatched socks. He thought I would never look there. He thought I was too busy, too tired, too trusting. He was wrong. So when he walked through the front door that evening, shaking rain off his coat and asking about my dentist appointment, I smiled. I told him the dentist said my teeth looked great. I kissed him on the cheek. I made him dinner. I asked about his day at work. He told me about a difficult client who wanted too many changes to a contract. I nodded like I cared. I served him pot roast and mashed potatoes. I watched him eat. And all the while, I was thinking about Samantha Reed, about the house on Maple Street, about the $412,000. That night, after Mark fell asleep, I got up. I went to the home office we shared. I turned on the computer. I started digging. I am not a detective. I am not a hacker. I am just a woman with a library card and a lot of free time. I started with the basics. I searched for Samantha Reed. There were dozens of them in our city, but I remembered the red lipstick, the sharp haircut, the black dress. I remembered the way she stood, like she owned every room she walked into. So I searched deeper. Social media, public records, property tax databases. It took me 3 nights of searching, 3 nights of sitting in the dark office while Mark snored in the next room. On the 3rd night, I found her. Samantha Reed, age 34, real estate agent, worked for a fancy firm downtown. Graduated from the same university Mark attended, 2 years behind him. And here is the part that made my blood turn to ice. She had been at our wedding. I found a photograph on an old social media account. It was a group picture from our reception. There, in the back row, wearing a gray dress and a polite smile, was a younger version of Samantha Reed. She had longer hair then, no red lipstick, but it was her. I recognized the shape of her face. She had been at our wedding. She had watched me walk down the aisle. She had probably clapped when we kissed. I went back to the folder. I looked at the deed again. The house on Maple Street was purchased for $820,000. Mark had put down $400,000 as a down payment. $400,000 that I never knew existed. That money came from somewhere. It did not grow on trees. It came from our joint savings. From the account we had been building together for 8 years, the account for our future children, the account for our retirement, the account for emergencies. I checked our joint account balance the next morning. It was lower than it should have been, much lower. Mark had been siphoning money for years. Small amounts at first. A few $100s here, a few thousand there. Transfers marked as business expenses or tax payments. He had been doing this for at least 3 years, and I had never noticed because I trusted him. I signed whatever he put in front of me. I believed him when he said the numbers were complicated. I was a good wife, a trusting wife, and he had used that trust to steal from me. But the fraud went deeper than just our savings account. Because when I finally gathered the courage to look at our mortgage documents, our car loan papers, our credit card statements, I saw the truth. Mark had been taking out loans in my name, lines of credit, personal loans. He had forged my signature on documents. He had used my social security number without my permission. The total debt he had accumulated in my name was over $200,000. $200,000. I sat at the kitchen table and stared at that number. $200,000. That was more than I made in 3 years. That was more than my parents' house was worth. That was enough to destroy me, to bankrupt me, to leave me with nothing. And Mark knew that. He knew that if I found out, I would be trapped. Because even if I divorced him, the debt was in my name, I would still owe it. The banks would still come after me. I would lose my credit. I would lose my ability to rent an apartment. I would lose everything. That was his plan. That was always his plan. He was not just cheating on me. He was setting me up to take the fall for his crimes. He was building a life with another woman on the ruins of my financial future. I confronted him the next evening. I did not scream. I did not cry. I simply put the folder on the kitchen table, opened it to the photograph of him and Samantha, and said, "Tell me the truth." He went pale. I had never seen a person's face change color so fast. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, and then he did something I did not expect. He laughed. He said, "Clara, you were never supposed to find that." I said, "Tell me the truth, Mark," and he did. He told me everything. He told me he had been seeing Samantha for 2 years. He told me he had bought the house on Maple Street as a surprise for her. He told me he had been planning to leave me, but he wanted to make sure I could not come after him for alimony or child support because we did not have children. He told me the debt in my name was intentional. He said, and I will never forget these words, he said, "If you try to leave me, you will have nothing. You will owe so much money that you will never be able to afford a lawyer. You will never be able to afford anything. You will be broke and alone for the rest of your life. So here is what is going to happen. You are going to keep your mouth shut. You are going to keep cooking my dinner and washing my clothes. And when I decide to leave, you are going to sign whatever papers I put in front of you. Do you understand?" I looked at him. This man I had loved for 8 years. This man I had shared a bed with, a home with, a life with. He was looking at me like I was a bug he wanted to squash. There was no love in his eyes. There was no guilt. There was only cold, hard calculation. And in that moment, something inside me broke, but it did not break into pieces. It broke into a new shape. It sharpened. It hardened. It became a weapon. I said, "I understand, Mark." Then I went to the bedroom, lay down next to him, and waited for him to fall asleep. That night, I made my plan. I want you to understand something. I did not want revenge in the beginning. I wanted justice. There is a difference. Revenge is hot and angry. Justice is cold and patient. I wanted Mark to pay for what he did. But I did not want to go to prison. I did not want to become the villain of my own story. So I decided to beat him at his own game. He wanted to use the law to destroy me. I would use the law to destroy him. Step 1 was gathering evidence. I started small. I bought a small digital voice recorder, the kind that fits in the palm of your hand. I started recording every conversation with Mark, every argument, every casual dinner chat. I recorded him admitting to forging my signature. I recorded him talking about the house on Maple Street. I recorded him laughing about how stupid I was for not noticing the missing money. I recorded everything. Step 2 was finding a lawyer, but not just any lawyer. I needed someone who specialized in financial fraud, someone who had experience with husbands who stole from their wives. I found her through a women's legal aid group downtown. Her name was Deborah Chen. She was 52 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and eyes that had seen everything. I told her the whole story. I played her the recordings. I showed her the folder. Deborah listened without interrupting. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair and said, "Clara, this is the worst case of marital financial abuse I have seen in 10 years. But here is the good news. He made mistakes. Big ones. What mistakes?" I asked. "He left a paper trail," she said. "He used his real name on the deed to the house on Maple Street. He transferred money from your joint account to his secret account using the same bank. He forged your signature on loan documents, but he did it poorly. A handwriting expert will see that in 2 seconds. And most importantly, he admitted everything on your recordings. But aren't recordings illegal?" I asked. Deborah smiled. "Not if you are a party to the conversation. In our state, only one person needs to know the recording is happening. That person is you." I felt hope for the first time in weeks. A small, fragile hope. Like a candle in a storm. Step 3 was the hardest. I had to pretend. I had to keep living with Mark. I had to keep smiling. Keep cooking. Keep sleeping next to him. I had to act like nothing had changed. Do you know how hard that is? To smile at a man who has destroyed your life. To kiss him goodnight when all you want to do is stab him with a fork. I did it for 3 months. 3 months of pretending. 3 months of collecting more evidence. 3 months of watching Mark come home later and later, smelling of Samantha's perfume. 3 months of him kissing my forehead and saying, "You are a good wife, Clara. Too good for me. And then laughing because he thought it was a joke. But I was not just pretending, I was also learning. I learned how to access his email. His password was the name of his first dog, which he had told me years ago. I found emails between him and Samantha, hundreds of them. They talked about their future together, about the trips they would take, about the children they would have. In one email, Samantha wrote, "When are you going to finally leave that pathetic woman? I am tired of waiting." Pathetic. She called me pathetic. I saved every email. I forwarded them to a secure account Deborah had set up for me. I printed copies and hid them in my car under the spare tire in the trunk. I also learned about Samantha. She was not just a real estate agent. She was also a fraud. She had been helping Mark hide money. She had opened bank accounts in her name that Mark used. She had signed documents as a witness to Mark's forged signatures. She was not an innocent woman in love with a married man. She was his partner in crime. That changed things. That meant I was not just fighting Mark. I was fighting both of them, two people who had plotted together to steal my future. But two people also meant twice the evidence, twice the mistakes, twice the people to catch in a lie. Step 4 was the most dangerous. I decided to meet Samantha. I found her at a coffee shop downtown. She went there every Tuesday morning, according to her social media posts. I sat at a table near the window and waited. At 10:15, she walked in. She was wearing a cream-colored coat and dark sunglasses. Her hair was shorter than in the photograph. She looked even prettier in person, prettier and colder. I waited until she had her coffee. Then I walked over to her table, sat down across from her, and said, "Hello, Samantha, I am Clara, Mark's wife." The color drained from her face. It was almost the same reaction Mark had when I showed him the folder. Almost. But where Mark had laughed, Samantha just went very, very still. She said, "You should not be here." I said, "Probably not. But here I am. I know about the house on Maple Street. I know about the bank accounts. I know about the loans in my name. I know everything." She did not deny it. She did not apologize. She just looked at me with those cold eyes and said, "What do you want?" I said, "I want you to hear something." Then I pulled out my voice recorder and played her a recording of Mark. It was the conversation where he laughed about my stupidity, the one where he called me a bug he wanted to squash. I watched her face as she listened. And do you know what I saw? I saw fear. Not for me, for herself. Because in that recording, Mark was not just incriminating himself. He was incriminating her. He mentioned her by name. He talked about the house they bought together. He talked about the accounts in her name. When the recording ended, Samantha looked at me with real hatred. She said, "You are going to regret this." I said, "I already regret marrying him, but I do not regret this." Then I stood up, walked out of the coffee shop, and went home. The next few weeks were tense. Mark started acting strange. He was jumpy. He checked his phone constantly. He asked me questions about where I had been during the day. I knew Samantha had told him about our meeting. I knew they were scared. Good, I wanted them scared. But fear makes people do stupid things, and Mark did something very stupid. He tried to sell the house on Maple Street. I do not know exactly what he was thinking. Maybe he wanted to liquidate the asset before I could make a legal claim on it. Maybe Samantha wanted her money back. Maybe they were planning to run away together. Whatever the reason, he listed the house for sale. He found a buyer in less than 2 weeks. A cash offer for $850,000. Deborah almost laughed when I told her. She said, "Clara, do you know what this means? He is trying to hide assets. That is illegal. Very illegal. And we have proof." She filed a motion with the court that very day. A motion to freeze Mark's assets, including the house on Maple Street, pending the outcome of our divorce and the fraud investigation. The judge granted it the next morning. Mark came home that evening with fire in his eyes. He had never hit me before, but that night I thought he might. He stood in the kitchen, his hands balled into fists, his face red with rage. He said, "What did you do?" I said, "I protected myself." He said, "You ruined everything. The sale is frozen. Samantha is furious. The bank is asking questions. What did you do, Clara?" I said I told the truth. And then I did something I had been wanting to do for months. I handed him a stack of papers, the divorce papers, the fraud complaint, the request for a restraining order, everything Deborah had prepared. He looked at the papers. Then he looked at me. And for the first time since I found that folder, I saw real fear in his eyes. Not anger, not hatred. Fear. He said, "You will never win. I have better lawyers. I have more money. I will destroy you." I said, "You already tried that. It did not work." That night, he packed a bag and left. He went to Samantha's house. I do not know which one. The house on Maple Street was frozen, so I assume he went to her apartment. I did not care. I just sat in the living room, alone for the first time in 8 years, and I let myself cry. Finally, all the tears I had been holding back for months, they came out in a flood. I cried for the marriage I had lost. I cried for the future I would never have. I cried for the woman I used to be, the one who believed in love. But when the tears were gone, something else was left, something harder, something that looked a lot like determination. The legal battle lasted 6 months. 6 months of depositions and court hearings and sleepless nights. Mark hired a very expensive lawyer. A man named Harold Finch, who wore suits that cost more than my car and spoke in a voice that dripped with condescension. He tried to make me look crazy. He tried to make me look like a bitter woman making false accusations. He played recordings of me crying. He showed pictures of me from years ago, trying to make me look unstable. But Deborah was better. Deborah had evidence, reams of it, bank statements, emails, recordings, handwriting analysis, expert testimony. She built a case so solid that even Harold Finch could not poke holes in it. The turning point came when the judge ordered a full forensic audit of Mark's finances. The auditor, a quiet woman with glasses and a calculator, spent 3 weeks going through every account, every transfer, every loan. Her report was devastating. She found that Mark had stolen over $600,000 from our joint accounts over a period of 5 years. She found that he had taken out $300,000 in loans in my name. She found that he had lied on mortgage applications, tax returns, and credit card forms. She also found that Samantha had been involved. She had signed documents as a witness. She had opened bank accounts that Mark used to launder money. She had helped him hide assets. She was not a victim. She was a co-conspirator. When the report was entered into evidence, Mark's face went gray. Samantha, who was sitting in the back of the courtroom, stood up and walked out. I watched her go. I felt nothing for her. No pity, no anger, just emptiness. The judge ruled in my favor on every single count. Mark was ordered to pay back every penny he stole, plus interest, plus my legal fees. The loans in my name were transferred to him. The house on Maple Street was sold, and the proceeds were given to me. Mark was also referred to the district attorney's office for criminal charges. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. He was looking at years in prison. But that was not the end. Because Mark did something in that courtroom that I will never forget. When the judge read the ruling, Mark turned to me. He was sitting at the defense table, his expensive suit now looking wrinkled and sad. He looked at me with those eyes I had once loved. And he said, "Clara, please don't let them send me to prison. I will do anything. I will give you everything. Just please." I looked at him. This man who had laughed at me. This man who had called me pathetic. This man who had tried to destroy me. And I said, "Mark, you already took everything from me. My trust, my peace, my belief in love. You cannot give that back. But you can give me one thing." "What?" He whispered. "Justice," I said. "That is all I ever wanted." The criminal trial started 3 months later. It was shorter than the civil case. The evidence was overwhelming. The prosecutor, a young woman named Angela Ruiz, was brilliant. She laid out the case like a puzzle, piece by piece, until the picture was undeniable. Mark Callahan was a fraud. He had stolen from his wife. He had forged her name. He had tried to ruin her financially so he could run away with another woman. The jury took 4 hours to deliberate. 4 hours, then they came back with a verdict. Guilty on all counts. I sat in the gallery and watched Mark's face as the verdict was read. He looked old, older than his 40 years. His hair had started to thin. There were dark circles under his eyes. He looked like a man who had lost everything. And I felt something I did not expect. I felt sadness. Not for him, for me, for the years I had wasted. For the love I had given to someone who did not deserve it. For the person I used to be before all of this. But sadness is not weakness. Sadness is just the price you pay for being human, and I had paid it. I had paid it 1,000 times over. The judge sentenced Mark to 7 years in state prison. He would also have to pay restitution. He would also be on probation for 5 years after his release. He would also be a convicted felon for the rest of his life. His real estate license was revoked. His reputation was destroyed. His friends, the ones who had believed his lies, slowly disappeared. Samantha was charged separately. She pleaded guilty to lesser charges in exchange for a reduced sentence. She got 2 years of probation and a fine. She also lost her real estate license. She moved to another state. I do not know where, I do not care. After the trial was over, I went home, not to the house I had shared with Mark. I sold that house. I could not stay there. Every room held a memory, and every memory was a lie. I bought a small apartment on the other side of the city, a fresh start, a place that was mine, only mine. The first night in that apartment, I sat on the floor in the empty living room. No furniture yet, just me and the moonlight coming through the window. I looked at my hands, the same hands that had cooked Mark's dinners, the same hands that had held his, the same hands that had found that folder in his sock drawer. And I thought about revenge. Was this revenge? I had not burned his house down. I had not ruined his new relationship. I had not done anything illegal or violent. I had simply told the truth. I had used the law. I had let him destroy himself with his own greed and arrogance. Was that revenge, or was it just justice? I still do not know the answer, but I know this. I am not the same Clara who found that folder on a rainy Tuesday in March. That Clara is gone. She died the moment Mark laughed at her. The woman who replaced her is harder, colder, more careful. She does not trust easily. She does not love blindly. She checks the bank statements. She asks questions. She keeps her eyes open. Some people might say that is sad, that I lost my innocence, that the betrayal changed me in ways that cannot be undone. They are right. It did change me, but change is not always bad. Sometimes change is survival. Sometimes change is strength. I have not dated anyone since Mark went to prison. I am not ready. Maybe I will never be ready, but I have learned to be alone. I have learned to enjoy my own company. I have learned that being single is better than being with someone who sees you as a tool to be used and discarded. I still think about Samantha sometimes, about the house on Maple Street, about the photograph on the mantle. I wonder if she ever thinks about me. I wonder if she feels guilty. I doubt it. People like that do not feel guilt. They only feel regret when they get caught. And I think about Mark, not the Mark who betrayed me. The Mark I thought I married. The one who fixed my bicycle when I was a teenager. The one who held my hand at my father's funeral. The one who said I love you every single day for 8 years. Was that Mark ever real? Or was he just a mask that a cruel man wore to get what he wanted? I will never know. And maybe that is the worst part. Not the money, not the debt, not the lies, the not knowing, the wondering if any of it was real, but life goes on. It has to. The sun still rises. The rain still falls. People still fall in love and get married and have children and grow old together. Some of them will be happy. Some of them will be betrayed. Some of them will survive. I survived. My name is Clara, and if you are reading this, it means my story is over. The legal battles are done. The debts are paid. Mark is in prison. Samantha is gone. I am here, in my small apartment, typing these words on a laptop that I bought with money from the sale of the house on Maple Street. I took back everything he stole, every dollar, every document, every piece of my dignity. But there is one thing I cannot take back, one thing that is gone forever. My belief that love is safe. That is the real cost of betrayal, not the money. Not the house, not the future you planned. It is the death of trust. The death of the part of you that believed in happily ever after. I do not know if I will ever get that part back. Maybe I will. Maybe I will meet someone kind and honest and good. Maybe I will learn to trust again. Maybe I will walk down an aisle again, this time with my eyes wide open. Or maybe I will stay alone. Maybe I will grow old in this small apartment, surrounded by books and plants and the quiet hum of a life lived on my own terms. Either way, I will be okay. Because I learned something through all of this. Something that no one can take from me. I learned that I am stronger than I knew. I learned that I can face the worst thing that ever happened to me and survive it. I learned that I can stand up for myself, even when the person I am standing up against is someone I once loved. And I learned that revenge is not about hurting someone. It is about refusing to be hurt anymore. It is about drawing a line in the sand and saying, this far and no further. You do not get to destroy me. You do not get to win. I won. Not because I am smarter or better or luckier. I won because I refused to give up. I won because I kept getting up every morning, even when I wanted to stay in bed. I won because I asked for help. I won because I told the truth. So if you are listening this and you are going through something similar, let me tell you something. Let me be the voice that someone should have been for me. You are not alone. You are not crazy. You are not stupid for trusting someone. The shame is not yours. It belongs to the person who betrayed you. Do not suffer in silence. Do not let them win. Gather your evidence. Find a lawyer. Tell your story. And when the time comes, look them in the eye and say, I see you. I know what you did, and I am done being your victim. You can survive this. I did. My name is Clara, and this is the end of my story, for now, because life is not a movie. There is no final credit scene. There is just the next day. And the day after that, and the day after that, and I am still here, still breathing, still standing. And that, I have decided, is the best revenge of all.